I remember the Halloween party like it was yesterday. It was a crisp October night, and I was excited. My friends and I had been planning this for weeks. We wanted to have the best Halloween party ever. I decided to dress up as a scary clown with a painted-on smile that looked more creepy than fun. As I walked to the party, I noticed the wind rustling the leaves on the dark streets. The full moon cast eerie shadows on the houses. When I arrived at the party, the house was lit up with orange and purple lights. There were cobwebs everywhere, and the decorations made it look like a haunted house. The music was loud, and the laughter of my friends echoed in the air. We danced, played games, and ate lots of candy. The atmosphere was fun and spooky. I even won a costume contest for my creepy clown outfit. Everything seemed perfect. As the night went on, I noticed something strange. There was a room in the house that no one seemed to go in. It was at the end of a long, dimly lit hallway. The door to that room was half open, and I couldn't resist my curiosity. I decided to check it out. The room was cold, and the air smelled musty. I couldn't see much because the only light came from a flickering candle on a table. On the table, there was a dusty old book. I picked it up and started to read. The book was filled with stories about Halloween and the supernatural. It described a ritual that could summon a spirit on Halloween night. It was just a story, but I couldn't help but feel a chill down my spine. I decided to share my discovery with my friends. We all gathered in that eerie room, and some of them thought it would be fun to try the ritual from the book. I was hesitant, but peer pressure got the best of me, and we followed the instructions. We lit candles, chanted some spooky words, and then we waited. Nothing happened for a while, and we all started to laugh it off, thinking it was just a silly game. But then, the room grew colder, and the candle flames flickered wildly. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared in the corner of the room. It was a woman in a tattered, old-fashioned dress. Her eyes were hollow, and she had a pale, sad expression on her face. We were all frozen in fear as the spirit slowly approached us. She whispered in a soft, eerie voice, "You have awakened me from the depths of the beyond." We tried to run, but the door slammed shut, trapping us in the room. The spirit began to circle us, and her whispers grew louder. She told us about her tragic past, how she had been wronged and trapped in the spirit world. She said that she wanted revenge on the living, and that we were now part of her plan. We begged and pleaded with her to let us go, but she just laughed, and her laughter sent shivers down our spines. The room felt like it was closing in on us, and the air grew colder. We knew we had to do something to stop this dark spirit. One of my friends remembered reading in the book that we could send her back to the spirit world if we recited the same words backward. With trembling voices, we recited the words backward as fast as we could. The spirit let out a blood-curdling scream and vanished into thin air. The room suddenly felt warm again, and the door swung open. We all rushed out of the room, panting and scared out of our minds. The party had taken a dark turn, and we were left in shock. We decided to call it a night and go our separate ways. As I walked home alone, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following me. Every rustle of leaves and distant sound made my heart race. It was as if the spirit from the party was still lingering, watching me. I finally made it home, locked all my doors, and tried to get some rest. But even in the safety of my room, I couldn't escape the lingering fear from that Halloween night. It was a party that started with laughter and fun, but turned into a night I would never forget, filled with disturbing and scary moments I wished I could erase from my memory.
It was the spookiest time of the year, Halloween. The air was chilly, and the leaves crunched underfoot as I walked to the local party store. I wanted to get some decorations for the Halloween party I was throwing that night. I was excited, and so were my friends. The store was packed with people getting last-minute costumes and decorations. I grabbed some orange and black streamers, a big bag of candy, and a cardboard cutout of a grinning jack-o'-lantern. The cashier, a friendly lady, wished me a happy Halloween as I paid for my stuff. Nightfall came, and my friends started to arrive at my place. We decorated the living room with the streamers, lit some candles, and put on a spooky playlist. The party was off to a great start, with everyone in costumes, laughing and dancing. We played games and had a blast. Around midnight, we decided to have a costume contest. We all gathered in the dimly lit living room. One of my friends, dressed as a zombie, hosted it. We had some creative costumes, but there was one that caught everyone's attention. A person in a tattered, hooded cloak stood in the corner. We couldn't see their face, just a pair of glowing eyes. It was eerie, and it sent shivers down our spines. "Whoa, that's a creepy costume," someone said, but it didn't sound like a compliment. The cloaked figure didn't say a word, just stood there, watching us. I thought maybe it was a friend playing a prank, but as the minutes passed, we started to get uncomfortable. No one seemed to recognize the person. The contest continued, but everyone was distracted by the mysterious figure. They didn't have any music or props, just the cloak and those unsettling eyes. When it was time to announce the winner, we all expected it to be the cloaked stranger. But to our surprise, my friend, dressed as a giant banana, won the contest. The figure seemed to grow agitated. It started to approach the group, slow and deliberate. We backed away, unsure of what to do. I tried to speak to it, asking if it wanted to join the party, but it didn't respond. Suddenly, the cloaked person reached out and touched my friend, dressed as the giant banana. He let out a blood-curdling scream and fell to the floor, writhing in pain. We rushed to his side, but it was too late. His body was lifeless, and his skin had turned a sickly shade of gray. Panic erupted in the room as we tried to escape. The cloaked figure was no longer just a costume. It was something else, something terrifying. We ran into the backyard, leaving behind our decorations and the haunted house we had set up. As we huddled outside, we saw more figures emerging from the darkness, all dressed in similar cloaks. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and they moved in a slow, eerie dance. It was a nightmare come to life. We decided to call the police, but our phones had no signal. Trapped and terrified, we watched as the figures began to encircle us. They chanted in a language we couldn't understand, and their voices sent chills down our spines. In the distance, we heard sirens approaching. Relief washed over us as the police cars pulled up to the house, but as the officers got out of their cars, they too fell victim to the cloaked figures. We were trapped, with no one to help us. The figures closed in, and we could feel their icy breath on our faces. We held hands, hoping that sticking together would somehow protect us. The chanting grew louder, and the world around us seemed to warp and twist. And then, in an instant, it was all over. The cloaked figures disappeared, leaving us alone in the darkness. The police officers and our friend were gone, as if they had never existed. We were left in a nightmare that had no explanation. I went to a Halloween party, and it was supposed to be fun. It was held in an old, creaky house on the edge of town. The house looked creepy, but I thought it was just part of the Halloween spirit. So I joined the party with my friends. Inside, it was dark, and the air felt chilly. People were dressed up in scary costumes, and there were fake spider webs everywhere. I thought it was all in good fun until things started to get weird. As the night went on, the music got louder, and the laughter seemed to turn into strange whispers. The party guests, all wearing masks and costumes, started acting strange. They moved slowly, like zombies, and they didn't talk much. I went to get some punch, and the drinks looked odd. They had a weird glowing color, and they tasted strange too. I felt dizzy after just a sip. The more I looked around, the more I realized that something was very wrong. The decorations on the walls looked like they were made from real bones. It was disgusting, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I tried to find my friends, but they had disappeared into the crowd. I felt like I was all alone in a nightmare. The strange people at the party kept staring at me with their cold, emotionless eyes. I started to panic. I found a room to hide in. It was a dimly lit bedroom with an old, creaky bed. I sat on the bed, trying to calm down. That's when I heard footsteps in the hallway. They were slow, and they were getting closer. I hid under the bed, trying to stay quiet. The footsteps came into the room, and I could see the feet of the person standing there. They were wearing torn, dirty shoes. I held my breath, praying they wouldn't find me. The person started to speak in a low, creepy voice. "You can't hide forever," they said. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. The footsteps moved away, and I stayed hidden until I couldn't hear them anymore. When I finally came out from under the bed, I decided I had to get out of that house. But as I made my way through the dark hallways, I realized I was lost. The house seemed to go on forever, with endless hallways and doors that led to nowhere. Every now and then, I would see strange figures in the shadows. They were whispering to each other and looking at me. I didn't know who these people were, but I didn't want to find out. Finally, I found a door that led outside. I burst through it and into the night. The fresh air felt good, but I could still hear the strained music and whispers from the party inside. I ran as fast as I could, not looking back. I didn't stop until I reached my own neighborhood. My heart was pounding, and I was covered in sweat. I had never been so scared in my life. I never found out who was behind that party or what they were up to. I didn't want to know. All I wanted was to forget that terrifying night and never go near that old, creepy house again. That's my Halloween party story. It's not the kind of scary you enjoy, but the kind that makes you want to stay far away from creepy houses and strange parties.
I once went to a Halloween party that I'll never forget. It was at an old, creaky house at the edge of town. The moon was big and bright that night, making the place feel spooky. The party started out fun. People were wearing all sorts of costumes. There was a werewolf, a witch, and even a mummy. But as the night went on, things got weird. The host, Mr. Roberts, told us about the history of the house. He said it was built a long time ago, and that strange things had happened there. But we didn't pay much attention to his story. We thought it was just for fun. As the hours passed, I noticed that some guests were missing. When I asked about them, people just shrugged it off. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Then we played a game of hide and seek. I found a good hiding spot in a dark corner of the house. While I waited, I heard whispers in the shadows. It was as if someone was talking, but I couldn't see anyone. When the game ended, I asked my friends if they heard the whispers, but they said no. I started feeling uneasy. The party continued, and I decided to explore the house. In one room, I found a dusty old mirror. When I looked into it, my reflection didn't move with me. It just stared at me with a sinister grin. I quickly turned away, my heart pounding. I went downstairs and found Mr. Roberts. I told him about the strange mirror, but he just chuckled and said it was a prank. I didn't believe him, but I didn't want to make a scene. The night grew darker, and more guests disappeared. There was a heavy atmosphere in the house, like something was watching us. I tried to leave, but the front door wouldn't open. I was trapped inside. I returned to the main hall, and that's when I saw it. A figure in a tattered black cloak standing at the end of the hallway. It had a pale face with hollow eyes. It didn't move, but I felt its presence. I couldn't look away. I slowly backed away, but the figure followed. I ran through the maze-like corridors, but it was always there, getting closer. I was terrified, not knowing what it wanted. Finally, I reached a room filled with old paintings. I hid among them, hoping the figure wouldn't find me. It entered the room, its breathing heavy and slow. It stopped in front of a painting of a young girl. The figure raised its bony hand and touched the painting. Suddenly, the girl in the painting started crying. Her tears turned to blood, and the room filled with her mournful screams. I covered my ears, trying to block out the horror. The figure turned and left the room, and the cries stopped. I was trembling with fear. I had to find a way out of this nightmare. I continued to search the house, looking for an exit. The room seemed to change around me, like a never-ending maze. I felt as if I were going in circles. At last I stumbled upon a hidden door. I pushed it open and found myself in a small, dimly lit room. In the center of the room, there was an old, dusty book. I picked it up and started reading. It was full of stories about the house and its dark secrets. The book told of a curse that had befallen anyone who entered the house on Halloween night. The curse trapped them inside, where they would be tormented by grudge-bearing spirits. I was filled with dread, realizing that I was now part of the curse. I had to find a way to break it. The book mentioned a ritual, but it was dangerous. Desperation forced me to perform the ritual. The room filled with a blinding light, and I felt a surge of power. When the light faded, I found myself outside the house, free from its grip. I never saw the figure or Mr. Roberts again. The house was silent, and the moon had set. I ran home, promised to never go near that place again. It was Halloween night, and I was excited about the big party I was going to. I put on my costume, a scary mummy, and headed to the spooky old house where the party was happening. When I arrived, the place was decorated with creepy stuff like cobwebs and bats. The party was in full swing with lots of people in their costumes. Everyone was having a great time, laughing and dancing. But as the night went on, things started to get weird. A strange fog rolled in, and the lights flickered. The atmosphere in the house began to change, and it was no longer fun. I felt like I was being watched, and the shadows seemed to move on their own. I tried to find my friends, but they had disappeared. I was alone, and the house felt like a maze. I walked down a dark hallway and heard whispers. The voices were eerie and sent shivers down my spine. I followed the sound and ended up in a room with a mirror. When I looked into the mirror, I saw a terrifying version of myself. My mummy costume had turned into a decaying corpse, and my face was twisted in agony. I stumbled back, and the mirror shattered into pieces. Panicking, I continued through the house, hoping to find an exit. But the hallways seemed to twist and turn, and I couldn't find my way out. The whispers grew louder, and I could feel something lurking in the shadows. I entered a room that was filled with old, dusty books. The room felt freezing, and I could see my breath. As I scanned the titles of the books, I realized they were all about dark rituals and supernatural forces. Suddenly, the books started to fly off the shelves, circling around me. I tried to run, but I was frozen in place. The books started chanting in an eerie language, and I felt a presence behind me. I turned around and saw a figure dressed in a black robe with a hood covering its face. The figure raised its hand, and the book stopped swirling. The room fell silent. The figure slowly raised its hood, revealing a face that was half rotten. It grinned at me, and I felt a cold, bony hand on my shoulder. I was paralyzed with fear as it whispered, "Welcome to our party." I managed to break free from its grip and ran out of the room. I had to get out of that house no matter what. The whispers and the eerie laughter followed me as I raced through the twisting hallways. Finally, I found a door and burst outside. The fog had thickened, and the house looked even more menacing in the dim light. I ran through the yard, but the ground seemed to shift under my feet. I stumbled and fell, landing near a grave. As I looked at the tombstone, I saw my own name and the date of that Halloween night. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was as if I was seeing my own future death. Terrified, I continued to run until I reached the front gates of the house. The fog was so thick that I could barely see anything, but I didn't care. I had to get away from that place. I never went to another Halloween party again. That night still haunts my dreams, and I can't shake the feeling that the house was a gateway to something beyond our world, something dark and terrifying.